Winter, spring, summer, fall, seasons change, we still keep it together.
Hey, Beverly Hills 90210 fans! Are you ready to dive deep, episode by episode, storyline by storyline, character by character, as we break down the making of your favorite zip code? With your hosts, Charles Rosen.
Did I say that?
Mary
All this
Mullins.
heinous thing about the real person, and we're going, what? We're getting rid of this guy.
Pete Ferrero.
I'm feeling wonderful. Kathleen looks TV crush worthy.
Like so many special guests. And all your questions. Live on the Beverly Hills 90210 show. Oh, yeah. Everybody dance now.
Chuck is muted.
And the question we're going to have starting off today, of course, is why, for after 3 years, am I always the last one let in?
I just hit the buttons.
That's not, you don't let me in early. There's no pre-talk. This is all live. And I call him a moron. It's unscripted.
It is unscripted. That's true. Yeah.
Hello, Diane.
Hello, Chuck. How are you?
Good. I can be your therapist, but know that when I graduated from Berkeley, I thought that my biggest accomplishment was that I went 4 years without taking a psych course.
Oh.
So it's all, I didn't want to know how crazy I was. So it's all improvised on that. So any help you need, I'm
Okay, I may be calling you on that.
My daughter Maxine is studying to be a therapist, and she gets all her wisdom from me. So yeah.
No, okay.
Does she ever try to like analyze you and?
What do you mean? What do you mean? Do we ever have dinner together?
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I love that.
I'm on the couch. Yes, I am with my daughter.
Well, I'm so curious, though. I mean, we're joking about it, but did 90210 ever bring therapy into either of your lives?
Oh, yeah.
My life?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not going to write a book, so this is whatever. Yes, I needed therapy to know how to talk to Aaron Spelling, because I had never met a man like him. I actually did. Diane, you remember Edgar Sherrick?
Yes.
Edgar Sherrick was who was Rudin, the one who was so horrible, the Broadway producer, Matt Rubin. That was his assistant at the time, and I that was the first time I went to therapy, because I had never been yelled at by anybody for any reason like that. Sherrick yelled at me for work I had done for him, but I needed to know how to talk to someone like Aaron Spelling. I had never met anyone like Aaron Spelling. Duke Vincent was easy to learn how to talk to. You just raised your voice.
Right.
That's all you had to do with Duke, and then he'd raise his voice.
Somebody's in the waiting room, and we're talking about season 3, but we wanted to do a really special reunion for you, Diane. So I know you love these surprises. Ro Diamond.
Hello, Diane. So good to see you.
So good to see you as well. See, you don't change.
Well, neither do you.
Oh,
And
you are kind.
Peter, thank you for arranging this. It was really fun and my pleasure. I just want to
of course.
everything
Thank you for doing this. I know you have a busy schedule and all that, but Ro, of course, is an agent. Just to let the fans know what we're talking about here. This is why it's a big deal. And Diane, when was the last time you saw Ro?
A very long time ago.
When did you leave LA?
I left Los Angeles in 2004.
Well, then it would have been that. But I was thinking this morning, knowing we were doing this, all the clients I had on 90210.
Yes.
Josh Taylor, Jenny O'Hara, Kerry Keene, Thomas Wilson Brown.
Yes.
The best part though was my husband was Jenny Garth's father at their graduation.
Oh, at commencement. This is amazing.
I forgot about that. Oh my gosh.
The original father. This is crazy.
The father that nobody saw, but then you flashed on him.
Yes.
Yes.
Diane called me and she knew that my husband was like very elegant and had the most amazing clothes. They wouldn't even have to wardrobe him. he did it. Diane,
It's amazing.
it's so funny that you didn't remember that. I didn't. Every once in a while, I find it and I Google it.
Ah.
The
Oh,
thing is, Chuck,
I'm gonna do that today.
a mystery has been solved. How would we pick the dad of Kelly Taylor? It was from Rhode Island.
Of course.
It was a
husband.
nepotism rules 90210 again, right?
Crazy.
Not knowing that all these years later, 90210 would still be talked about like on a podcast, multiple podcast shows, and explored like you wouldn't believe. And people have wondered, why were there two fathers? Did Kelly Taylor have a dad at the commencement and then a different dad later on in the series? And now we kind of have an answer.
Oh no, just muting some of this stuff. I'm so sorry.
There are all these great names that you mentioned.
Yes.
Great actor, all of them. 2 points. Ryan Thomas Brown is getting married in Las Vegas, right? And
yes,
it's the same Ryan, right?
No, the Zipper, you got it mixed up. You got it. I think
no.
So the most important one, of course, is your husband, the very debonair. He always struck me as, he just walked out of the Hotel Cipriani in Venice, got on a private jet, and came to this ceremony. He looked so much more elegant than anyone else there.
Oh, Chuck, I love that you remembered that. That's so funny. And I think Josh Taylor was working the same day. And my husband's also an agent. My husband's, one of our partners. So when he stepped out of the trailer and Josh said, "What are you doing here?" It was really fun. I know it's still memorable, and friends will see him like in repeat sometimes. Like, wait, is that Lewis? Okay,
that's so amazing.
You can also at the dinner parties comment if you want that while your husband was working, he was very safe because on the roof that day were armed security force from the sheriff department.
Oh my God!
Because we had a bomb scare 2 days before.
Yeah.
I guess Diane forgot to tell you that when she booked her husband.
Well, my husband's a former Marine, Chuck.
So
he would fit in great.
You would have all been very, very safe.
And he must have, it's surprising that he was sent there because if Duke Vincent would have known another Marine was on the premises, he would have been in Command Central, wherever that was. I don't know.
There you go.
Well, Ro, for you, connecting on 90210 with Dianne, what was she like back then?
Oh, the best. I think for me as an agent, I'm like I don't have any wood around me. I mean, I'm doing this over 50 years, and my success I will say has always been about casting directors. I mean, I very rarely have had to go over a casting director's head. Very rarely will have to go to a producer or studio. And Dianne was, I don't want to embarrass you, Dianne, but the best of the best. I mean, I would just call her and great idea. Well, they come read for me, of course, because she also knew how to give direction in the room. She was so kind. And I think it's, I don't think a lot of casting directors realize the influence they have on actors when they go in the room and how much they can get out of them with kindness, with really just making them feel comfortable. And Dianne was always at the head of the list for that. It was great. That's why she's missed.
Yeah. What about for you, Dianne, when you would deal with someone like Ro? I mean, if she brought someone to you, what was that experience like for you?
I never had to worry. I never ever had to worry because we had such open communication. Yeah. We had known each other for a long time and totally and completely trustworthy and a wonderful human being. And you know what? She's just a good agent. She's a really good agent. She's fair in negotiations, but does the best for her client. I mean, what can I say? It's like, she is somebody who I did keep in contact with for a while. After I left, I would talk to after 90210 and also, other shows. And, I don't think I told you that I was leaving but I don't remember that because I just kind of left.
You just
But
left.
she's somebody who I always would consider a friend. And actually, when I called her recently, before I was starting this, she said the greatest thing. I said, "Oh, I'm so glad you'll talk to me." And she goes, "Well, I'm not a fair weather friend. I am your friend." And it was just, I love that. And this is why I love this woman. And Louis, fabulous. Everybody in the agency is wonderful, but Ro is just, I mean, she's appropriately named.
Thank you. That's
here. How about?
All right,
Well,
let's talk about, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, but it's, I think for me, again, as an agent, thank you, Dianne, for all of that. It's just wonderful when you trust somebody. And
Yes.
it's what I know you're on a podcast, but I think what's so important, what I tell all young actors now, the reputation you start with is what stays with you with your entire career. I mean, that's it. And when I see difficult actors, it is just astonishing to me that they just don't know how quickly they're going to blow up. Makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting too, because with social media being so prevalent in those days, 90210, you didn't have social media, you didn't have cell phones, so there was no way to know that this may have been happening on whatever was happening on set, right? Like, it was sort of, nowadays things can blow up a lot quicker.
Like in 2 seconds, the minute it happens, it's out there.
Yeah.
I just like to say that trust that you're talking about, as Dianne knows, really would carry over. Dianne would always print where the actor, who they were represented. And when I saw the name of your agency, it was always, well, they're here, so we're in good shape. We're going to have the right person. And Dianne would then, just to make sure that I wasn't falling asleep or wasn't tense, telling me, Ro represents this person. It was like,
thank you, Chuck.
Because
Chuck,
that's all I really needed to know.
Thank you.
Truthfully.
Well, when you reached out to me, was it last year about Josh Taylor?
Correct.
I got on that immediately.
I know, it was
I
great.
remembered your name.
Let's
Love
talk
it.
about some of this, by the way. Let's talk about some of the specific people that you brought, and maybe you and Dianne can share some memories about it. But let's talk about Josh Taylor. I mean, we were saying last week that he was so wonderfully casted on 90210. As a 90210 fan, that relationship between Dylan and Jack McKay, that's Josh's character, or even the real life relationship between Josh and Luke was really beautiful and something touching, and I think fans really gravitate to. There's some really beautiful stuff that happens through that only can happen with two really incredible actors working together. So let's go with Ro, bringing Josh into the world of 90210.
Well, I mean, it's a long time ago that he got the job. I just remembered being so excited because it was such a hit. He might have already been on, he might have already been on Days of Our Lives when he got that.
I think he was.
Yeah, because I think he's been on that forever. It was such a hit show. So for me, any client that was doing that show, it was so exciting. I think, the one that stands out so much is Jenny O'Hara playing Nicole Tom's mother.
Yes, let's go there. Let's talk about her.
Oh my God. And Jenny has been my client since 1970. Isn't that crazy that all the ones I'm mentioning right now are still with me, are still.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. What did you do? Did you start in the business at 14?
You do look amazing.
I graduated high school in 1970. I know how far 1970 was back then. No.
I became an agent the day that Jenny was signing with her agent in New York. He was hiring me that day, and that's how far back. And she still works. She's about to go do a 2-woman show. I mean, it's crazy, but that stands out to me because I just remember how dramatic that role was.
Yeah.
And it was just, I'm repeating myself, but every time somebody got a role on 90210, it was just such a highlight in the office because it was so huge. It was great.
Ro, do you remember meeting Josh Taylor and how that came to be?
Oh, I do. I worked for a little agency called Century Artists, and the man who owned the agency brought Josh in. And those were the days of contracts at Universal, which, you're way too young to even know that, but they'd have access to the contract and then loan them out. And Josh was under contract and he came in and I thought he had such an attitude. And he sat there and I was I don't want to say I was mean to him, but I was just so dismissive. And then he sat there and he was so kind. And he said, an agent should be somebody that believes in you, and an agent somebody that you should talk to. And it's like all of a sudden we just had this transformation. It was so unbelievable. And to this day, he's just one of my favorite clients, one of my favorite people. He's just wonderful and dear. And I think it's why he's always kept working. Yeah. People just love him. But I remember so clearly sitting in the room, meeting him for the first time. And, again, this was mid-late 70s. So here I go again. His reputation has just always been wonderful. And another reason I think he's just always worked.
Chuck referred to it as a touch of country. He has a little bit of a touch of country, right?
Yeah. And whose mother did Carrie Keene play?
Noli Thornton was the actress, and the character is what's the character's name, Chuck? Test. Noli Thornton's. I can't hear you, Chuck. You muted.
You're muted.
Chuck, something happened. We can't hear you.
Well,
there you
the
go.
character was named Ro Diamond, but the censors made me change the name, so I don't really remember.
Erica McKay. Yeah,
that's when we need Larry Mullen for all.
Yeah, well, I mean, I knew it. I was just testing the waters to see.
I know nothing.
Yeah. But she's been on our podcast and she has said that she was not even aware that, because the character inevitably was scamming Dylan. I don't know if you remember this, Ro.
I don't remember.
Yeah, but that Carrie wasn't even aware of that. She just played it totally honest, that this woman was a totally honest person, and
that's Carrie.
Was so shocked by the fact that she was scamming Dylan this entire time.
Oh, that's so funny.
So tell me about meeting Jenny O'Hara first.
Oh, she was a Broadway actress. I mean, she had done Fig Leaves Are Falling, the very first one, and then was signing with this agency. And shortly after, let me go back. Okay. I was working for the Schubert organization. I was a secretary and I was able to go see any play I wanted for free. Jenny O'Hara was starring on Broadway with Sir Dylan Thomas. No, do I have it right? No, Sir Alec Guinness playing Dylan. And Jenny O'Hara was the ingenue. And this was 1964, 1963. And I remember being in awe of her then. I mean, that's how far back her career started and her brilliance. And then when I was one of her agents, she got to do Promises on Broadway. Just never, ever, ever stopped working. And shortly after I moved to LA, she came here too. And we've been together ever since.
Incredible.
And in fact, she just did Station 19 2 weeks ago. I mean, it still works.
Yes.
For Dianne, when talking about those two people, and you've kind of talked a little bit about them coming in the room, but Ro brings them in. What's your thoughts? It's definitely going to be amazing because Ro's bringing them in. But what are your thoughts of that process?
You know what? It's just acceptance, because they're going to walk into the room and they're going to be wonderful. And I knew Jenny better than I knew Josh. But I mean, Josh, what we've talked about, warm, welcoming, and just a great, great human being. And you're not just a casting director. When he talks to you, you're a human being. And it's two different things. And he was so conscious of that all the time. The fact that, you know what, she can always give me a job, but he didn't think like that.
He wasn't that guy.
Yeah, he didn't think like that. And I don't think that Jenny did either, because they addressed you as a human being. Oh, look at you, this is great. I'm so glad to see you again. But it wasn't a business only kind of thing, which was always appreciated and very, very nice, because we are human beings. And so I love that part about him, and the fact that he was a nice actor, and that everybody liked him. How great is that? I think I've talked about it before, that when you bring an actor in, someone like Josh and also Jenny, plus you get the icing on the cake because it's from an agent who you like. You get you get excited inside when the response is so positive. And it's like, I would always think, yay, everybody likes, oh, yay, there, I get the call, they get the job, that kind of a thing. And Jenny O'Hara is just a force unto herself. She is, I think I had hired her. Hadn't I hired her before?
On Matlock. I'm sure.
Yeah, Matlock.
Of course.
When I did the first season of Matlock. And she just...
Wait a second. You did Matlock? Had I known that, Diane, I'm not sure that this would ever... I know Fred Silverman really well, and I knew Dean Hargrove even better. And Dean, but Freddie, Oliver Shalom, Okay. Anyway, just want to clarify that.
Hold on.
We're not talking about the 300-pound gorilla in the room or elephant in the room, which is that, yes, it was important that Jenny was represented by Roe and that was really loved by Aunt Diane. But excuse me, she was a friend of Paul Wagner. And if it was a friend of Paul Wagner, that even trumped being a friend of Dianne Young. I mean, if he wanted it, that was going to be, and we would go forward. Because, again, we're now talking with two people who love actors. Paul Wagner loved actors. Yes. And then you have me. So I'm going to listen to the people who love actors. Well, these are the people the actors love. So, okay.
But Diane,
that was not my forte, clearly.
Go ahead,
better at it, but it wasn't.
I just want to know, Diane, who was it when you did Matlock that used to make you cry all the time?
Freddie Silverman.
Diane, I remember Diane telling me she would have to go have a drink of water, because if you have a drink of water, that will stop your crying. I still remember that, Diane.
It was very cold water.
Cold water. Well, no offense, Fred, but you were kind of cold too. So cold water for a cold individual. Yes. But Freddie, Tito will just enjoy this. Probably the people listening to the podcast won't even make a difference, but you'll enjoy this. So Fred inherits a 8-part miniseries called Roots that someone else had bought, that someone else had done. He looked at number 1. He said, oh my God, no one's going to watch us. Just put them on night after night and blow it off in February, and we'll move beyond it. And of course, it became his greatest triumph as a podcaster. That's show business right there.
Oh man,
that's pretty amazing. Well, Chuck, though, from the producer's standpoint, you were just talking before about talking to Aaron and learning how to speak to him. When Roe would bring in a Jenny or a Josh Taylor, was it like, hey, well, Roe's bringing them in, they've got to be really good? I
just told you, Pete. You had to be listening when I was talking. I just told you that.
Yeah, no, Mr. Spelling himself, though. Was he involved?
What about Mr. Spelling?
Was he deeply involved in the casting process?
No, he wasn't. Not these parts, because these were, although he was interested in these parts. I shouldn't say that he wasn't, and he probably had back channel conversations with Diane about them and whatever, but he really wasn't. They weren't held in his office. It wasn't part of the teen ensemble. That's what his prime interest was. Jenny, we didn't know we were going to bring back. Jenny, we hired originally for the show where Scott dies in the gun accident, and then decided to deal with
so incredible. She's so good in all of that. Oh my
God!
So so those are two of the best performances we ever had,
and then the incest episode is just so, it's just presumption.
Well, the incest episode is the one I'm referring to.
Yeah, it is incredible. Her work is just
so those two, and yes, Josh, yes, but I think by this point, also Aaron, we're going to be talking about season 3, and by season 3, Aaron's dance card got filled up. He did not have the same time for our show that he had for that we had for 90210 in the first 2 seasons, because he was busy salvaging Melrose Place.
Was Melrose Place a spinoff of 90210 or totally separate?
Technically.
It was, right?
No, not technically. Specifically, yes, a spinoff.
Yeah.
It follows the definition, Pete. We cast an actor who debuted on our show and then was in the other show, so it spins off, and And
Yeah,
that's
well,
a
but like
spin-off. That's how they
traditionally,
all.
a
That's
spin-off would
how.
be David, what you talked about, like David is going to stay at high school and then they're all going to go off, the rest are going to go to college, right? That's kind of like the traditional way we know what a spin-off is. Like we introduced Grant show, and then it, because of the
No, no, wrong. The most famous spin-off, well, there's a lot of them, but you have to go. Norman Lear was really big with the spin-offs.
Maud.
So
classics.
the Jeffersons, she
And
worked
Maud.
there, was there, and then she's a guest star. Then she's got her own series. Laverne and
That's the
and
one I was going to
Laverne
say. Laverne and Shirley,
coming
yeah.
off of Happy Days. So
Yeah.
no,
The Ropers coming off of Three's Company, right? Yes.
I didn't watch the Ropers.
And then Models Inc. was the spinoff of Melrose Place.
Is that right, Chuck?
Maybe I actually
think it is.
Yeah. Amazing.
Models Inc.
Oh, I'd forgotten
launch
about
party.
that.
That's the only time I ever spoke to Rupert Murdoch, but I didn't know it was a specific spinoff. Probably was. I just didn't know it.
What
I
about
think-
meeting Carrie Keene, Ro?
Carrie Keene had just moved from Canada, and there was a wonderful producer named Burt Metcalf and Bernie Rothman who knew me and called, and Carrie came in, and it was a love fest. It was great. It's been a little bit tough. It is that Caucasian woman who's, any Caucasian right now, it's just been very difficult. And Carrie, I think, is at an age that's been tough. But the best part, she runs an acting class and just loves it. It's fabulous.
She's doing amazing. Yeah,
So
she loves it.
successful at
Yeah.
that. So it's been really, really terrific for her. So it's great. And she's found some wonderful talent.
Yeah. Who did you say there was another one, or did I just, was it
Thomas Wilson Brown,
yeah.
but he just did one.
That's right. He did like a season 2. I think he does I forget what he did on 90210, but it was
I don't
great.
remember either.
Yeah.
Is he one of the frat boys or something?
So I think he like annoys
I think
Steve
I'm sure he's a bad boy.
yeah, he annoys Steve in the when he has detention, and then it builds into that whole thing with the racing. I think that's what.
Oh, one of the big 5 we still have left.
That's right. Yes. Well, this is great. Dianne, is there anything you'd like to say to Ro here while we have you both here?
I am just so glad to see her again after all these years, and hugs to you. And we will, we'll stay in contact now.
Please. Well, Dianne, call me again or text me. So
I will,
and
definitely.
I want to know about all that wine behind you.
Oh.
Is that your wine cellar, I hope?
Oh, yes, it is actually. It's a friend of mine owns a wine bar here in Moses Lake, and how can I not come do a podcast without all this wine?
Just in
The
case,
name of her bar across the top, and everybody will come visit.
for sure.
Well, so good to see you.
Roots, okay.
Yes.
Peter, thank you so much for reaching out. It was just really my pleasure, and I enjoyed it. And Chuck, finally, we're getting to meet, if not in person. This is as close as we're going to get these days.
That's right. The others with the phone. Great to see you.
You
You look beautiful, Rose.
Thank you. The other thing I just want to say, which is just so sad since the pandemic, that most actors don't have the advantage now of meeting a casting director. Everything is done by self-tape.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that actually. Yeah.
It's crazy to me, not to interrupt at all, but I've been hearing this a couple of times on this podcast, and I don't understand, because the person to person is so important. I always thought.
It's, from a casting director's point of view, a lot of them love it. They don't have to go to their office, and they can do 5 series because they just sit there and keep watching tapes.
Wow.
For me as an agent, there's one side that's very easy because I can get a self-tape appointment for anybody, where you can't always get your client seen for every job. I also have the advantage of looking at their work. And if it's something that I feel really pops, I'm going to pick up the phone and call the casting director and say, make sure you watch this one. Make sure you go to scene 2 or 3. But I feel the actors are missing out by a good casting director giving them direction in the room, that don't have that advantage to say, step out, bring it up a little, bring it down, be off book. They're all on their own. And that's really been hard for a lot of them.
Yeah, so much about it is reading a room, right? And you can't even how do you read a Zoom? You know what I mean?
And Dianne,
You froze up, bud. I think it was going to be really great, though.
Yeah. Whatever he was saying was.
There he is.
Are you back?
There you are. Are you back, Chuck? There you go. What did you
Yeah,
say?
well, I was going to ask, like, oh, it's telling me my internet is unstable. Like, I need this to tell me this. I was saying that, you know, you were so good. I would want you to dub in and be the voice of the people once the show was done, because you read so well with them.
Aww.
You know, casting them, then that was what I got used to thinking what it should sound like. And it, you know, it was as Pete knows a little bit from both. I came out of radio, so a lot of when I would even be in the room with the in the laybacks and stuff, I would just close my eyes and listen to the shows, because I felt that many times people watch television while they're reading a magazine, so that what are you hearing was as important as what you were seeing.
Right. Peter, has Jenny done the podcast?
She did our super show. We would love to have her come back and do that episode that both of those episodes we were talking about. Yeah, so she's just so lovely in that. But Ro, before you go, I'm all about gratitude. I just want to thank you for the work that you've done over the last, you said 50 years. Is that right?
And plus, yes.
Yeah, I mean, because you just, particularly with this show, you brought us some really lovely actors that fans are super connected to, and in a level that sometimes I'm blown away by, you know, of a performance or something. So just thank you for what you've done over the last 50 years, because it's brought so many people great work, but really great entertainment. And we know, of course, that helps people in their own lives as they're, I just watched Meet Cute, which is another one of your clients, and it was so proud, incredibly well done and well written and performed and all that. So you've had a touch in so much stuff, and just thank you for all of that.
Thank you so much. And I'm lucky that I still love what I do. I mean, how many people can, you know, people keep saying to me, when are you going to stop? When are you going to retire? And my answer now is when I don't enjoy it anymore. I mean, that's it. And I'm blessed that I do.
Yeah. Keep at it, because I think the best stuff is yet to come. So thank you,
Peter. And reach out about Jenny. I'll be happy to get her back. Okay.
Oh,
bye.
amazing.
Bye.
I'll see you, Ro.
Nice seeing you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
What a beautiful morning to be reunited with an old friend like that, right, Dianne?
So great. So great.
All right. Season 3, guys. Let's get into this. Now, last time we were talking, you said the riots were happening in between seasons 2 and 3. And that's what you remember about getting into season 3, Dianne?
Yes, actually, that was a definitive yes. What I remember about it is that I think Chuck, you and I had talked about my coming back a little bit early so that I could meet a lot of people, because there was going to be so much more casting. And we were trying to figure out when. Well, then it was going to be closer to the beginning of May, which was, I think that Paul Wagner was still there at the end of April. And I showed up and he's like, why are you here? And I said, well, this is what we're doing. And the riots had just started. And so that's what I remember is how, and I lived out in the San Fernando Valley, Northeast San Fernando Valley. And it was, you know, everything was quieter going to work and making the decision, am I going to go? Are we still going to do this? That type of thing. And you would hear on the news all the time. And I had friends who had police radios, CB radios, something like that. And they would talk about how people were coming to different parts of the city and what was happening. And it was pretty scary, but you'd go and you'd stop and get gas. And it would be quiet, very, very quiet, as I remember. And everybody kind of kept to themselves at the time. But it was in that atmosphere, which was, to me, distinctly different for Los Angeles, you know, to go to work at that time. But that's a huge memory for me. And so I started at that same time that the riots started, seeing actors and meeting actors. And I would just send out, well, this is not this is just, who should I meet? Who do you have that might be new, or I should see again, who has grown, that I should meet for this next season, because we're having a variety of new roles come up, and I'd like to meet some new people.
Yeah, and there's a lot to talk about. I want to ask Chuck though first. We always talk about the 5 seasons that you did, the different seasons. What was season 3 for you?
Senior year.
And you finally got that.
Yeah, senior year. This was my favorite year. We talked about this. We had enough resources to make a show, not beg, borrow, and steal to make a show as we did in the first 2 seasons, and we were in real time, so that it felt like much more the high school experience, because let's face it, in suburban and more affluent high schools, the kids are talking about what are they going to do in college, what are they going to do next year, even if that next year is I'm going to go in the Army,
right?
Their future is what they're thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
And we never got to do that in high school. It was all, kind of just what's going on this one, and because there was still the notion of being standalones. So this also was the first season that we really got to do some serialized stuff. We talked about it with the legacy key that went on from getting back to high school all the way to the very end at graduation. We talked about it relative to college. Where were they going to go? How was it going to work? Brenda with the little curly Q that I'm going to be going to Minnesota instead.
Right.
And that, and of course the impact of the triangle, which, as we talked about, came right out of season 2, and Luke's desire to not play second fiddle to Melrose Place, or in his case, to Grand Show.
Right. So there was a lot happening, and there was more roles to cast here.
And also the other part of it was, and it was, this leads into the riots, that it was also a pact between, and it's what I miss most fondly about working with Steve and Jessica, was season 3, was the pact. We had lost Aaron Starr. We had lost the creator of the show, a writer whose scripts were always on the money. There'd be very little. What you'd have to worry about, Darren, if you're not listening, so I know I can say this with love. What you're worried about with Darren is, what is he going to get the script on the day it's due? But you would never worry about the quality of the script.
Right.
But this was one that we really vowed that we were going to make it our best year and work really hard and figure out how to do it. And Steve and Jess immediately glommed on to the notion of having a triangle, because that was the part and parcel of a soap culture, which I didn't really even know, but and being able to use that, and Jessica being so amazing at recapping stories, talking a mile a minute, that the network couldn't, and God knows Mr. Spelling could not keep up with what she was saying, because she'd just say it with such authority so quickly that you'd have just, no one ever said to her, Jessica, slow down.
Right.
And I'm glad they never did, because a lot got through that might not have if she had slowed down. So.
When we talk about the incest episode, I mean, that you've told me was Jessica pitching that and getting that through. I mean, I can't even imagine.
Of course, and doing it in the way that you knew how she pitched, Diane. And then Tori does this, and then Tori does that, and then Tori does that. All the other characters we refer to by their names, except for Donna was always Tori.
Right.
So
hey, Diane.
And we did that. And listen, I'll be that. This is Charles as manipulator and partial cynic. That I knew that even probably more than Mr. Spelling did, what a sensitive topic doing incest on television in 1992 was. And so to be able to get that through, it had to have his support, or this one was going to get thrown out.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely dive into that. Hey, Diane, was Darren leaving? Did that affect you in any way?
Not too much. I liked him. I thought he was pretty quirky and funny.
Yeah.
And, pretty easy to talk to. And in that area, sure, but specifically, no.
Yeah, he
Not
was not too involved in the casting process prior to.
Not really. I'm trying to remember.
Mhm.
No, that was Paul.
Yeah.
Paul and
Yeah.
Jessica were much more involved with casting,
Yeah.
and then
Paul
Karen
on
would be my
episode-
proxy
Yes,
sometimes. But
Karen was. Because Paul came in on episode 6, right? So he
right,
was
with 6 to 7, that
Right.
transition.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some people from this season. Why don't we start with Jennifer Grant, who is going to be Celeste, Steve's girlfriend, comes from a family, Cary Grant's daughter, right? I mean,
Yes.
this is an incredible lineage. So, did you know that? I guess you must have known that, Dianne, right?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I'm trying to remember who her agent was at the time. And God, but I can't obviously it's 30 years later, but I remember talking to her agent on the phone, and he said, well, it's Cary Grant and Diane Cannon's daughter. And I was like, oh, okay. And I think I said before on the podcast that I was always open to second generation and third generation in some cases, because they need breaks just like everybody else does. So, well, let's just, have her in and see. And that she had, was studying, doing these things. And so I had her come in to read for me. And she was, nice girl. Very nice girl. And I never ever brought up parents at all, because it was always about who was in front of me. And I don't think that I ever even said anything to her about her lineage at all. It's
sure Chuck did. Did you?
No, I didn't care. But I'll tell you the one that was even more like, let's protect this person's lineage. There was a young girl came in, very pretty young woman, came in as a PA for a summer and worked in the Valley, and everybody liked Sydney. She was so nice. Nice to meet you, Sydney. This is Sydney. Goodbye, Sydney. Yes, I'll have this for lunch today, Sydney. Great to see you. Goodbye. She was just nice, fit in. And I remember being very beautiful. I did not realize until she left, and Paul said to me, that was Sidney Poitier's daughter.
Oh my God.
So,
what a
I went to
twist.
Beverly High, so that didn't faze me at all. But,
right.
It's celebrities. But it was just all of that, it's just, there are people who get exposed, and they're people, or Dianne would professionally, and you come in, or you grow up in Los Angeles, and you're in such a situation that your friends become friends with big movie stars' children. As my son Avery was very, very close growing up with Malcolm Washington, Denzel's son. And I remember we had a basketball tournament, and we were Rancho Park. We were West LA. We were sophisticated part of town, and we were playing against Pan Pacific, and Malcolm Washington played for Pan Pacific, and my son played for Century City, and I was the second coach. And all these parents, they were nice jobs, nice things. They were all like screaming fan. Denzel Washington's here watching the game. It's just, that is a part of Los Angeles. But when you grow up in it, especially in a more like a Beverly Hills, or you're in the industry, there's no time for that. So that's why oftentimes when celebrities are here in Los Angeles and they go out, they're just kind of treated like normal people, and they like that.
Yeah. Well, what about the Jennifer Grant, Chuck? were you had to be aware that it was Cary Grant's daughter, right? In the room?
I didn't care. No, I wasn't aware, and I didn't care. She was the one that was good. She was in the room. Everybody said yes. I'll say yes. and believe me, there were very few times that I said yes, that it was no. And the only time those would happen when we should talk about next was Dean Cain.
Let's talk about Dean Cain.
Because Dean Cain was what came in to read for Monsieur Rick, as did Mark Kiley.
Right. It's important because both of them wind up in that season. So yeah.
That's right. And Karen and I were we were really and Karen was in on those casting sessions because she had created the character of Reek, and writers were always welcome in our casting sessions. So, and this was in Mr. Spelling's office, and we both really responded to Mark Kiley. And Mr., saw Dean Cain, and that's who he wanted. So we created a different role for Mark.
Okay, so Dianne, how much of that do you remember? Dean Cain. Yeah.
I remember Dean Cain coming in and reading him and just really liking him. And he was very approachable, which was terrific, very friendly, approachable. And whenever I saw him on the set afterwards, he was just really good. Nice guy, very nice guy.
So this kind of reminds me of when we talked about season 6, and there was the debate between the Colin Robbins character. There's two people that two different people want a different person, right? So in terms of that, knowing that Chuck and Karen are really into the idea of Mark Kiley for that role of Rick, and then others are seeing Dean Cain, where do you sit in a tough situation like that?
That part of it I don't remember because I like them both. But in going through my all the interviews and readings that I had before the season started, I saw my notes on Mark Kiley when I met him for the first time, but I didn't see them on Dean.
So tell me about Mark Kiley. What were some of your notes about Mark?
Here, I have it right here. It's I wrote down unapproachable at first, but look out.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's like, oh, okay, I don't know about this, but oh, wow, watch what happens. And so that to me is really great. Yeah. Really, really great. Because it's like, boom, there's a transition and it's unexpected.
Mark has been on this podcast and been very appreciative of his 90210 time. Oh. But Pete, it's not, the difference is that for all of us, and there was no bitching and moaning about it out of my office,
right?
Because Mr. Spelling's names were on the check. My name was not on the check.
So in that situation, you just roll with what he wants, and like you said,
and deal with it. Yeah.
And like you said, create a character for Mark Kiley.
I had an experience. I had an overall deal with Disney, and I created a show without going into too much depth in that Jeffrey Katzenberg was ready to put on the air as written, and he couldn't for a Walt Disney, like the Fabulous World of Walt Disney, to be one of their rotating series to be on it, and it got didn't go forward. And I couldn't believe it. And as someone said to me, even Jeffrey Katzenberg has a boss. His name was Michael Eisner, and they were having a war at the time. So I was a victim.
You got caught in it. Yeah.
Moving on. So.
About Mark, I want to go back to him for a minute. I loved him as an actor, and I got to know him as a person, and we became friends, and I met his wife. We had dinner, multiple times. And he's just a really good actor. Just a really good actor. And again, one of the people that I like a lot because they're a good person, same as Dean, I thought. So I didn't want that to go unsaid because I am still to this day a huge fan of Mark Kiley's. Huge, and I always will be.
I think he brought a lot to that character that you did inevitably write for him too, Chuck. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Gil Myers. And for Dean Cain, Chuck, what did you inevitably think of his performances as Rick?
Sweet. They, that he went on. I know there was one director who thought that he could give more to the acting part of it, that he was a little raw. No, he was not. Dean was on a track to become a professional football player, an Ivy Leaguer going right to the NFL. That didn't happen. He said, oh, well, I'll try acting. And I think that's about when we picked him up. And, and he's a very handsome man. And that's what Aaron would always look for first. And then the others would the other elements would come into play. So he had the look, and once you had a spelling look, you were dealing with the spelling look, and no matter what that was, and it would change sometimes. You couldn't predict if 10 Farrah Fawcett's walked in the room, only one of them was the real Farrah Fawcett. The other 9 were also, very model-esque, attractive, contemporary, whatever else Aaron was looking for. And he knew what he wanted, and it was an Aaron Spelling production.
Right.
Well, it wasn't an Aaron Spelling production, was it? It was a Torrand production. Tory for Tori and the Rand for Randy.
Oh, that's very
Rand,
cute.
our
Yeah.
company.
Yeah.
I think about what I used to think about going to Aaron's office. It was, he was such an icon at that time, and here you're finally working with him or for him, and you want to bring your 2 or 3 best people to him for the role. And although you can't control what happens in the room, you just want him to know that you've done the best you can for that role. You've done your legwork, and you're bringing people that the producers like. I had talked to Tony about everybody, Tony Shepard, and so I would assume that Aaron had heard some of the names.
Right.
And it's something you don't walk into Aaron Spelling's office not knowing what might happen, that everybody's going to be decent in the room or give a good reading. That's you don't go in there bringing someone who doesn't do their best. And sometimes it's very intimidating walking.
I was going to ask that. Yeah.
Very intimidating, because it's like, oh wow, they had that pinball game with the Spelling family's picture on it, and a beautiful fish tank, and this long sofa. So you try to bring your A game to him.
And we've heard about, on that note about feeling intimidated, were there actors through the years that you said that you can sense were nervous or intimidated, that you had to maybe say, hey, it's going to be okay, just do what you do, or something like that?
Sometimes when actors came in, sometimes I saw them out in the waiting room first, and I said, oh, I'm so great you're here. We're looking forward to you reading, that kind of a thing. But we spaced them apart so that they wouldn't run into each other. And when they came into the room, it was, you introduced Mr. Spelling pretty much sat to my left or my right, and I would introduce him and then say, well, Chuck and whoever else was, everybody else who was in the room. And I would try to make them as comfortable as possible, because they were sitting directly in front of me. And that's how we would read together. And he had small tables, not a big coffee table or anything. So you just do your best to be friendly and open and comfortable, and not be uptight and, oh, this is, I know this is really important, it's got to go perfectly, because it, yes and no. Everybody's, like I've said before today, that we're all human beings and things can go wrong.
Sure.
But you just make them as comfortable as possible, and you make that eye contact with the actor. And you smile, they sit down, they meet everybody, and then we start to read. And that's the part that they have been through before several times.
Right.
And you just make it comfortable for them.
All right. Someone else we should talk about, Dana Barron, gets a huge part in that season as Nikki Witt. And of course, she was in one of the Vacation movies.
Very first one.
Yeah. She is in the original Vacation, yes. Right? The one that we all sort of watched. What do you remember about Dana?
Well, here's something I don't know that I've brought up before. When I was working at Warner Brothers, I was first brought over to Warner Brothers during a strike, and there were 3 feature films being shot, and Marion Doherty needed an assistant, and one of the movies was the original Vacation.
That's amazing.
And that's just a little piece of trivia. And so I worked on the original Vacation, and it was being shot out of state, which is why it wasn't affected by the strike. And that's my beginning with Dana Barron. Although I didn't cast her, I would,
You did meet her through that when she was
Yes.
young, and you always
yeah.
had her in the
Oh,
back
yeah.
of your mind, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was in my, I think that by that about early mid-20s, something like that. So, and like I've said before multiple times on the podcast, you remember people.
Yeah. And I think Dana is very memorable on 90210. Chuck, do you remember her from Vacation and then coming around?
No, I didn't remember her. I was too busy looking at Christy Brinkley. I'm sorry. But I do remember there was a movie. It wasn't a Charles. I'm more of a Sidney Lumet kind of waiting for those movies would excite me, or the Francis Ford Coppola movie.
Right.
Not so much a Vacation. But at the same time, I was really excited. Remember the moment I met her, the moment I'm seeing her work with and because she was younger too, so she was working in the beginning, and that first summer crush, it was with David, Silver. It was with Brian. So she was with the younger ones, and we wanted Brandon to have a younger girl, be, for him, and him kind of break down and want to have another girlfriend after Christine. After Emily Valentine, and Dana was just perfect. What I remember about her as a person is probably much more than her as an actress, which was her wanting, and I must have fielded 5 pitches from her, like in the craft service table, in the Christmas party, whenever it was, to just, let's do an episode where the entire gang goes to Africa and gets involved in a social issue there that was her social issue, and that never stopped. And then Dana and we got to see each other years later. We worked for a camp called Camp Harmony that my kids were counselors for this camp that worked with homeless kids, and she was someone who was there as a facilitator for the group, and she was just great. She's a very great peer, and it really shocks me that she doesn't have an aptitude for tech. She just seemed like somebody who was just really bright and there, and
You're
my
talking
kind of gal, because I have no aptitude for tech, but
on the
she
Super
has
Show.
She has none
You
either,
had
so.
problems logging in and
It's the Carol Potter Club.
Yeah. Right.
Well, don't we all?
And I'm in it. I'm a outreach person.
Chuck, I'm curious. You've told me about this Africa pitch, and Jessica has mentioned it as well. So she was pitching Jessica as well.
Oh, sure. I'm sure.
And I'm sure you got pitches from cast at times like that, or not that particularly, but
no. Only Ian, with the idea that he wanted to write, and he had the idea to try to bring in Alzheimer's. We talked about that.
Which you did do.
5. That was the only one. The only one who pitched me on anything else was James Eckhouse to be a director. Nobody else pitched me on anything, because Jason directed right in the first season, because he just knew, if I want to be a director, I'm a director. It doesn't matter what this showrunner says.
Right,
and he
fair
knew
enough.
that to be the
Yeah.
case.
And Luke pitched, I want to work with the blonde. So they're
Oh, that was on my invitation.
Sure. But
That
so
was
when
me
Dana
again,
did, was there
Dianne,
any
you knew
consideration
this,
of
right?
it? Did you think about it and say, I'm going to take this over to somebody and talk about this Africa trip? I mean, was there any consideration of it whatsoever? Or was it just like, I can't do this. This is not happening.
I can't do this. This is not happening. I couldn't send them to Paris. Let alone I was going to send them to Africa, even if I wanted to send them to Africa.
Intentions were good, just can't be. It just is not realistic in that.
Nor creatively did I understand how it was going to fit into what we needed to do.
Right. Okay. All right. Nicole Tom.
Nicole Tom.
Do you remember Nicole Tom?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. I mean, she was well known as a quote unquote child actress. but she was much more than that. And I knew her teacher, her acting coach, really well, and a woman named Dianne Harden, who is married to Jerry Harden, and the actor. And Nicole, I had seen Nicole before, I had met her before, just really liked her, and I knew that she'd be terrific. I just knew she would.
Chuck, in the case of Dana and Nicole Tom, we've talked about a little bit before that you thought maybe they're back to the spin-off conversation, that maybe there would be a spin-off of the people that stayed at the school. Were you dually looking for, like, as you looked for the storylines and you were casting these parts, like, well, Nicole Tom is somebody that I could see being here next year?
Well, not Nicole Tom, because I wouldn't know what to do. I may be good at pointing out something like, well, there was incest going on in that house, but what to do with an incest survivor was beyond my pay grade at that
fair
point.
enough.
So yeah. I didn't have an idea about that. Dana had already left the show, and no, they were really separate. With Nicole Tom, the only thing is, and it's funny, Karen's former writing partner, and we talked about this, Rob Sternin, went on to create The Nanny. And I was stunned, and I think I even made a point of Dianne saying this to her, that when Nicole went on that show right after ours, I looked at Nicole Tom and went, when is Scorsese going to cast her? I mean, I had really high regard for her as an actress, and I was surprised. Obviously, you get an offer. It's a series regular. The money is jacked up 2-3 times what you had been expecting, and whatever else. So there are compelling reasons to take jobs that aren't necessarily only directed by a select few. But I really had high regard for her talent, and
she's incredible.
And really thought she carried a very, very difficult role off, and it was great. So that was my only thoughts about her, was just that people wonder how did that actor end up here and not end up there. And it's as Diane's talked about, you read Leo DiCaprio, did you do Brad Pitt too? He was going into things.
Yeah, I hired him twice on Growing Pains.
Yeah, and they don't get cast, and then they become Brad Pitt. So it's you never can. That's why I don't think that actors, I mean, maybe stars do. Stars are their own thing. But, to condescend to someone who didn't reach that plateau. But it seems to me with actors, they all realize, and it's the sincerity that are in their speeches when they win awards, is that, therefore, but the grace of God, I'm working retail, or I'm working, on a traveling, national tour, not on Broadway. I mean, it's such a, it's so arbitrary, and it's so, I just was reading something before coming on here that, Margot Robbie was basically, she almost didn't do, she'd rather quit the business than do The Wolf of Wall Street. She said, okay, I'll do one more, see if anything happens because of it.
It's incredible.
Now she's Margot Robbie. So,
yeah, of course.
So I really feel that with actors.
Yeah.
I feel that writers, the one thing I liked about writers, and when I was started out being a writer, knowing that my father was a doctor and not in show business, I didn't see that as a negative, because a writer who's not talented, but whose father or her father is in show business, gets one chance, maybe two, but after that, you either got to deliver or not. An actor, you can get, I'm doing this because this person's friend, or this and that, and those things, you can build a nice career out of being a marginal talent versus a knockout.
Dianne, I should ask you about that, though. I mean, talking about Growing Pains, were you a part of the casting of Leo DiCaprio?
No, that happened. I did the first 5 seasons of Growing Pains, and I believe he came in the 7th season.
That's
and
right.
The casting director by the name of John Levy, who did that. And John was at Warner Brothers for a long time, and he's a terrific casting director, obviously.
Good find, obviously, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Okay, how about Paula Trickey?
That's not one of them. What's next?
Well, but you have a good Paula Trickey story about being interested in the room and what everybody thought of her and all that.
All I remember about Paula Trickey is actually me getting down on my knees and crawling around the room. I do remember that at the end. I had been there. She was the sexy. I mean, Dina Meyer also had that really like, oh my God, I've never met someone who looks like this. Garcelle Bouvet, who was a personal friend for a lot of years, had that kind of thing. The beauty is just so, outstanding. And Paula was that. She just had it all, and she would be the perfect person that a man going through midlife in an executive position, mid management, upper middle management. This would be, oh my God, if I have this as an assistant, I'm this person, I'm in trouble. And
right.
That's why I worked hard not to have that person as an assistant.
Do you have a thought on that, on Paula Trickey, Dianne?
Oh, that's a reading I'll never forget, that casting session. And I pre-read her and knew, I mean, she's stunning. And she gave a great reading. So I, set her up, and she came in and she wore that white dress. And every jaw in that room dropped. And I was like, okay.
And I knew when Paul Wagner, who was out and proud early
Yes.
before anyone I knew in Hollywood, when his jaw dropped, then I knew this is the cast too.
Yeah.
But then she acted and she was great, and she was just, I wanted her to come work for me, but she's an actress.
Well, but what she did that was so terrific, I mean, she really owned the role in the reading. And did you remember her kneeling over the coffee table?
Yes, I do.
During the reading, and she's reading with me, and I'm like, oh my God. But I could tell everybody loved that.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Let's put Dianne in an uncomfortable position, but it's part of the reading and part of the session. And I knew, I said, this is her role. This is her role. And that's what you want. That's what you wish for.
Yeah. Well, that's so important to deliver knowing what the part is and how to impress the room with what you're doing, right?
Yes.
Impress the room. 32 years later, we're talking about this.
Peter Krause, who's gone on to do amazing things.
Yes, he was really a good actor, and he was also one of the actors that I met previous to the season starting. And I had seen his name earlier today, but I just remember, I mean, he pretty much had it all. He was attractive, he held himself well, and he was a good actor, just a really good actor, and nice and easy. I've used that before, that term, but just a nice, easy actor. And I was one of the people I was really, really happy about.
And we kept that relationship going off camera. We made at least a couple of references in scripts that Andrea had kept in touch with him, A, and then B, that he then had broken up with her in a letter. And so they were kind of, so you never really knew how much they had done off camera together. Made allusions to. Obviously not totally sexual, but they were an item in their own. And he was terrific, and I've always and look forward to someday he'll be behind me in a line in CBS or something, and I'll get to turn her and say, you did we got you in 90210 pretty early on.
I never ever reached out to his people to see if he would do this podcast. I mean, maybe that's a possibility down the line. I don't know where it stands in his library of work, but I mean,
get it done soon, Pete.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come on. I'll tell you what. let's go over the names.
Okay.
And this is for the fans, so I'm sorry, I just got to do it. And Dianne, you'll just do a couple minutes without me.
Okay.
I'll let Pete go through the name. I'll go real quick, say something, and then you guys will do a little more in depth or not.
Yeah, for sure.
Whatever you do, it'll be like when I would leave, when Lindsay was small, and Karen and I would get, when we were doing 90210,
Yes.
Karen and I would get in the car, and she'd be all upset because the babies were crying, and I'd be pulling away from the house going, funny, I can't hear him. I can't hear him. So whatever you're saying, I won't be able to hear, but I will mark it. And we've been doing this for 3 years, and certainly we had a lot of fun times doing this podcast. Really special shows. We were going to do another Christmas show this year, and we just and this is in that top 10, Dianne, of the times to get to see you and really hang out and go take deep dives into our casting life, because it was so important. And you made my life so much better by doing such a great job in how you did it. And that was always will be appreciated.
I mean, these episodes are doing incredible. People are just talking about these casting episodes, and so it's really cool to see that people care about the work that you did, you know.
All right, let's go through them, Pete, right from the top.
David Arquette.
David Arquette did the role only as a favor to Bobby Roth, the director of The Horsewoman, who we were talking about 2023, about his fabulous work as a director.
Okay. The Creel sisters, you've already kind of covered them.
We did. I wanted to do a series called Deduct PI, and I needed triplets, so I knew that triplets existed, and so when we needed twins, taking part of the twins from the triplets was really a good idea, and they were a lot of fun. And then we've had them on the podcast and really enjoyed them as well.
Daryl Thomas Utley is the little boy who is deaf. And Dianne, we'll get your comments on all these people. We're just doing Chuck's
quick rundown,
quick money round
to humor me. Yes, yeah. I appreciate it. Yeah. All stories that pretty much had to do with special needs characters came from Paul, and Paul knew this young actor, knew the mother was an actress, and just felt very strongly that we could do something really great during the summer thing. And I wanted to have a camp, you know, because I wanted to get Lindsay back on the show.
Okay, well, Rosie O'Donnell is in this.
Rosie O'Donnell came as a favor to Jessica, who knew people in the comedy world. And Rosie did the role and then found out, and I did a special honorarium for her, and you know, to the charity of her choice, whatever it was, and she got back to me or to Jessica and let her know that what I gave wasn't enough.
So how did you handle that?
I handled it two ways. I went public with it right now for the first time, and secondly, she got nothing more.
That's it. Okay, Seth Green.
Seth Green, I just championed him. That was such a big, you know, the Princeton boys to men, making men out of boys or whatever it was. It was Chip Johannessen's, I think, second script for us. It was off the charts. We knew we were, oh my God, it's not just the one really great script. We're gonna get a lot out of Chip, and was such a beautifully written, fun script, because it had the drag racing on one side. It had the and we haven't really done this one either, and so that's one we'll take a deep dive into, and it was it just was done, you know, really well. And I know that years later, when someone was talking about the series, they pointed out that it was the last true high school episode we did, and I can't disagree with that, because the next episode after this, Jack McKay gets out of prison, right, and that's going to lead to a boat exploding. That's going to lead to a whole other, you know, level of melodrama we had never dealt with before.
The casting of the Horsewoman, Alice Krieg.
These were friends of Bobby Roth's.
Got it. Let's see. Robert Costanzo.
Robert Costanzo took a directing class with Karen, and that Robert Costanzo is the voice of the angels in It's a Totally Happening Christmas, which was an idea that I had come up with, how to do a Christmas episode, and I thought it was a little crazy, and I called up Steve and Jess and said, I got this crazy idea to have like talking stars and do a whole thing on It's a Total. It's a it's the Jimmy Stewart movie, and they went, I waved to Wasserman, and the only way that he could, I love it, and okay, we're going for it. I think I wrote that one Karen and I wrote that one in about 3 days.
Incredible. Yeah. And we're going to be doing some fun stuff on our Christmas show with that. We'll talk about that at some other point. Burt Reynolds, do you want to talk about that?
Burt Reynolds, we wanted to have some, the Hollywood thing, and this was Jason's first episode that he was going to be directing. We called it Ditch Day. Ditch Day, they had that at Beverly Hills High School, so just took from Ditch Day. And we just wanted to make it kind of a crazy kind of day. And in the Peach Pit, we wanted to have it kind of, we needed something that just wasn't with the kids on leaving the set. So we did a big Peach Pit heavy one about, stars coming in and fan clubs and all, a really crazy plot written by our a first AD who wanted to be a writer, Ken Stringer, who was kind of a key player in the 90210 world, especially during double ups. We talked about him. He was the czar of the double ups. But we wanted to have it be these, this Hollywood fan club. And so we needed to create a Hollywood fan club. We needed to create somebody who was a big enough star, an old line star that would have a lot of people. And we reached out to Clint Eastwood, and he said no. And Mr. Spelling made the personal call to Burt Reynolds, and Burt Reynolds said yes.
That's amazing. All right, Chuck, I think that's all the names that I have really for you. And now I'm going to sit with Dianne and talk about some of those same names and some other names as well.
Thank you so much, because I have to just get to a doctor's appointment and I can't be late. So I do appreciate it all. Dianne, love you. And we'll be in Washington one of these days. And we'll, even though I'm sure that somewhere in that wine bar, there's a bottle of whiskey for me.
You know what? I will bring it. It will be here. It will be here for you.
Thank you. Have good holiday season, good health, and best wishes on everything.
Thank you. You as well. And I can't thank you enough.
Hi.
All right.
Hi to Karen.
Okay, I'll see you soon, Chuck. Okay, let's go, Dianne. Let's talk about David Arquette. Do you remember David Arquette, your version of David Arquette?
Oh, my version of David Arquette. I do remember David Arquette. I didn't remember what Chuck said about him. I knew that he was a friend of Luke's, and he was a known actor around, and had him in because I saw his name this morning as well. And I really liked him. Nice guy. I
thought he was great. He did an awesome job, and this. So this is not something that he would have to read for, right?
Oh yeah.
He read for the part?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so. It's
I mean, he's great as the rock and roll boyfriend Diesel. That's his name, I think. Yeah.
I think you're right about that.
Yeah.
I have to go back and look at all these episodes. Sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody. I'm trying to, like Burt Reynolds obviously didn't. That was written for him. I'm trying to remember. The majority of people, 99% of the people, came in and read.
The Creel sisters. Do you remember the triplets? No, they were on Growing Pains as well, I think.
Yes, they were.
In fact, I think one of them told me, maybe Leanne, that Kirk Cameron went to her like prom or something, some spring dance with her or something. Yeah,
they dated.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
they dated early on. Yes, and I'm trying to remember. I think it was we needed twins, and I forget how I found them. Maybe it was through an acting teacher or something who called me, because contacts everywhere. And they said, well, we have triplets. And I was like, oh my God. And I went to those producers and said, what about triplets? And they were like, oh my God. And nice people, nice girls from Orange County came in with their mom, and I've known them forever. And the minute this came up, it was like, oh, I know. It's the Creels.
Yeah, they're so great. I mean, they've done their podcast. I've stayed in touch with Monica. She's lovely, and I thought they were great on this in the summer episodes here that they did. Yeah.
Just, I mean, great people. Oh,
So do they read as the triplets? How do they come in, or do they immediately get it because we need triplets and here they are? Yeah.
Here, here's your twins or whatever, and
Yeah.
here I have an extra one. Do you want
Do you want to
to
use her for anything? Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. And
Yeah.
it changes the whole dynamics. And of course, on a half hour, it's just they're a little bit crazy anyway. And
Right.
I knew them very well. And it was a fun time. And so when this came up, you bring, well, here, I knew that one of them was not acting.
Right.
And, having had the history with them, it's just, it's the Creoles. It's just
amazing.
Creoles.
What
There
about
aren't that many.
Right, exactly. What about the little boy that was the that Daryl Thomas Utley, the deaf boy? Do you remember casting him?
I remember him coming in. Obviously, Chuck told the story of Paul Wagner, and he's absolutely correct about it. And my assistant Kelly, her mother, God, I think, did she teach ASL? Something. She was very much involved in that as a teacher. And so she came, I said, please ask your mom if she'd come in and sit on the readings. And I cleared it with the producers and Paul, everything was just fine. And so Kelly's mother, Bonnie, came in and sat in on the readings. And it was just, when we brought him in, it was like, oh, wow, look at this. And
Yeah.
Speechless about it because it was just so touching.
He's lovely. He does such a wonderful job. And Gabrielle is, so we should acknowledge as well, it's just, is playing off of him in that episode. And she also does. I think she also was I think she was involved with that as well, like that she knew sign language and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I remember that a little bit, not specifics on it, but yes, definitely. And so it was something that everybody kind of got into, and it just makes such a huge difference. Huge difference in a casting session.
Another actress who her name is Alexandra Wilson. I don't know if you recall this person, but she plays Brooke Alexander, and the character Brooke Alexander is essentially a racist character. You know what I mean? She has strong opinions, and she's saying a lot of general statements about different types of people. Do you remember Alexandra? She's been on the podcast. She's very lovely. She's from around this area. I've gotten lunch with her. She's very sweet. Do you remember casting her? And was the fact that this role, that it was going to be something extreme like this, was that something that you had difficulty in casting?
I didn't have difficulty in casting because I just thought of it as part of the character, and the actress would bring to it what they brought. And when I read her, I liked her right away. I didn't say anything about what was coming up, as I remember. Now that could be incorrect after all these years, but I liked her. I just liked her, and I thought she did just she handled it well. Yeah,
she's lovely. She's a fantastic actress. David Sherrill, who comes in as a homeless man here a couple of times. War vet. Do you remember David?
He was a friend of Jason's.
That's right.
Yes, and he came in and did a good job.
So, I mean, a friend of Jason, a friend of Luke, we talked about, you bring them in, you read them, and there might be a thought of like, okay, well, we'll lean to him. But I'm sure at times if the actor doesn't deliver, then you're just like, what are we going to, there's nothing you can do about it, right?
Exactly.
I mean.
Yeah. And I think that as a friend of a cast member, you're pulling for them, let them be, terrific or whatever. And sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. And you just have to go with whoever the best actor for the role is. And even though the friend might have given an equally good reading, it might be something that the producers saw within who we went with if it wasn't the friend of the series regular, because there's no guarantees.
Right.
No
Exactly.
guarantees. You have to do what's best for the show.
Right.
And that's all, that's something that has to stay in the forefront of your mind. It's got to be the best for the show.
Totally. Okay, how about Jeff Doucette? He played as the janitor. Yeah.
Again, he was, I think, a friend of Jessica's and
That's
Steve's.
right. Yeah.
And nice actor. He'd been around for a while. He came in, he was terrific. And you love one of the great character actors, you know, in Hollywood. There are all these people, character actors around. And when you have a role like that, to be able to bring in Jeff Doucette for 90210, it's like, here he comes. This is,
Yeah.
you know, and that's the only way I can describe it, because sometimes you're limited in what you need as for an actor, you know, guidelines. And just, he did a great job.
He was great. Kamala Lopez was,
Kamala Lopez, I remember her a little bit, and nice actress.
yeah. Now, Kamala Lopez came on our podcast and she remembered having difficulty with Shannon, and you know that she had observed something on with the girls, and they were picking dresses and all this stuff, and picking from the different racks, and you know they maybe pulled something of hers that she was supposed to wear, and then they did what they wanted with it. I mean, are you aware of Kamala having that problem? Does she tell that to you, or are you not involved in that?
I didn't know about that specifically, but I had heard it at other times.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things you go, oh, okay. And you just put in the back of your head.
So like, does a Rhode Diamond, not Rhode Diamond specifically, but does the agent tell you, like, I just want to let you know that there was this thing that had happened, and I just, to protect them, to protect their client, you know, from that incident, like, you know how the political world of acting can be, especially on that show, and they just want to cover everybody, like, hey, I don't know what happened here, but just letting you be aware.
I don't remember that specifically happening on the show, and I don't remember hearing about it. But I would, yes, if I knew the agent well, then yes, I would definitely get a call.
Right.
And this is just, you know, between us, or, you know, whatever. And don't bring it to anybody's attention, but this is what happened. And generally, the only person I would talk to about it would be the agent, and then I would I'd tell Kelly, because she works on the show too.
Sure. Yeah. And so, I mean, like, that would never, like, I mean, of course, you're going to deal with the agent again. You're going to bring a different actor, and it would always kind of like keep the relationship strong.
Yes, absolutely. It never, something like that, you know, it's one of the things when you work on a show like 90210.
Totally.
Also,
sure, all shows, even a Growing Pains, right? There's,
yes, exactly. Yeah, but Growing Pains had its own problems in a different area.
Right. Well, the actor is someone who is, I mean, I don't know if you've been following the news, but Candace Cameron has gotten herself in a little trouble over the last couple of days. You know, she's just saying how she, you know, they're a very religious family, which is wonderful. I mean, I'm not dismissing that, but it definitely leads to some awkward comments and things that how they approach it, you know, in the acting world.
See, I did read about it on Instagram, and I saw it on Facebook, and I just, you know, I have great respect for that family. I've known them for a very, very long time, and I have great respect for them saying things like this in this day and age, because it's what they believe.
Yeah, and it's not easy to say.
No, it's not easy to say, and you knew right away that somebody was going to say something against it, because that always happens. And I give it to them for standing up for their beliefs.
Totally. You can't go against that. It's true. Even if it's something that you disagree with, you know what I mean? The approach, you know, you still have to give credit for going.
You know, but here's something controversial. I don't know that I do.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah.
I'll just say it. I don't know that I do.
Right.
It's who she is, and more power to her.
For sure. Okay, what's your take on the Rosie O'Donnell coming on to the show? Do you remember that, or
Oh, yeah.
yeah?
Yeah. She was coming on to the show. I forget how it all came about, but what I remember is that I got a call late the night before she was going to be on the show and was asking for a limo. And you know what? Let me correct that. Maybe not a limo, but a car and a driver. And I'm thinking, oh my God, it's like almost midnight. And how am I going to handle this? And I just didn't. I thought, what do I do? Who do I call? That kind of thing. And because it was very late, and I remember that specifically, when her agent called, I just said, you know what? I'll come pick her up and I'll take her.
And that's what you did?
That's what I did. It was against every rule in Hollywood, and they can sue me now all these years later.
Who cares? I mean, it's just wild. And how was she when you picked her up? Because now you're the casting director. You're not the car service. Now, by the way, it's just an Uber. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
now you just get a
yeah.
black car Uber and it's done, whatever.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I mean.
No, I went to her house and picked her up, and she got in the car and she said something to me that I hear you think that I'm difficult or a princess or something like that. And I just said, I think I had my dogs in my back seat. And I said, I think I did. I said, my dogs are in the back seat. Come on in. Let's go. Let's go. It was like, 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Now, what is the fallout of something like that? I'm sure you tell Paul, I'm sure you tell people that I brought her here. I don't know what, I don't.
Yes, I went to the unit production manager, who was someone else, and it was not Paul.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe, Paul had to have heard about it the next day. But when I came in, I went over to the unit production manager's office and I said, this is the call I got. This is the time I got the call. This is what I did. And he looked at me and he said, no, you don't do that. You make the call. And I said, okay, fine. You tell me who to call at that time of night.
Yeah.
And I will do that if it ever happens again, but I never want it to happen again. This was my best solution at this time of night.
Right.
And this is what I did. Fire me.
Right. And so did she get a ride back to her house?
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
Yeah. Not you though. I'm sure there
it was not
the driver. Yeah.
And you try to be as nice as you can. But yes, that is what I remember.
What was she like do you remember what she was like on set? Was she easy?
I was not on the set. I brought her to the set. And
you had things going on. That's on set, right?
I left.
Yeah, the driving detail was done, right?
Yes, it was done. And I went home, got a little bit more sleep, and then went to work and said, hello.
Yeah.
This is what happened.
That's crazy.
I was taking the task. So there you go.
The one part, that Wild Horses episode is controversial. Fans either love it or hate it. Most do not care for the horse storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Alice Kriega. Yeah. I mean, what are your memories of casting her?
She was a friend of Bobby Ross, the director.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember bringing her in. Did she come in? Yes, because she came in and she read, and she left, and it was dead silence in the room, except for the director, who thought she was so fabulous.
So this is a time when you read, talking about Roe earlier, you read the room and the room was not excited.
No. And what was going through my mind at the time, and this rarely happened, was, oh my God, what are we going to do? But it was not up to me. It was up to the director.
And so the director loved him and everybody just went along with it.
Yeah. You know what? I don't remember what everybody else was talking about in the room, because all I could think about was, what are we going to do?
Yeah. How do we handle this? Right.
How do we handle this? And so I remember hearing it a little bit, and then I heard my name, and there we go.
And they were like, book her, and that's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and she's it's not good. It is like, she's a wonderful actress. I know that she's done horror stuff, and I know that she's done things, but it's not great. It's not a
No.
great episode. So it did not get better.
No.
Okay, how about Valerie Wildman?
Oh, she's such a terrific human being, and what a good actress.
Yeah,
And
we've
she
had her
was
on here a
exact-
bunch. She's just so lovely. Yeah.
She is just exactly what the role needed.
Yeah.
So perfect. And I had hired her another time. And so she was one of those people you pull, and oh yeah, she's terrific. Oh,
She's
so
someone
good.
else who went back a few more times with that whole story. And I think she's got a long-term relationship with Josh Taylor, like from that television show. I believe that they were on whatever that is, Days of Our Lives. I think that they had a relationship as characters on that show. I'm pretty sure.
Good. I'm glad because that helped. If it
Yeah.
was before then, I didn't realize that, and it
Yeah.
helped. Or, I have forgotten it. So.
They've known each other for a very long time, so that
And that helps so much if indeed it came before the role
Yeah.
that you did for us, because they're comfortable with each other.
they
She-
know each other.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm. Melanie Smith. Do you remember Melanie Smith? Melanie Smith has a small role in the series. It's Steve is going to tell his mom that he got suspended from school and over the whole legacy key thing. And Melanie Smith is like the intern that's working for this reunion show for the Hartley House show.
Oh,
But Melanie Smith also had a part in Seinfeld in which she was in the shrinkage stuff. She was Jerry's girlfriend at that time of that.
oh, okay, with George.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I could now.
It's okay. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thomas Wilson Brown came up earlier. Do you
Yes.
remember him?
I do remember him because he's one of Rose and a nice actor, good actor.
Yeah.
And I think he did a couple of 2 or 3.
I feel like he may have done more than
Yeah.
one for sure. Yeah. Seth Green.
Seth Green, I knew him before. He's just a really good actor.
Mhm.
And when I called about him for the role, I was just like, yeah, okay, great. Is he available and would he be interested in this? And he was, he's a kid actor, but man, what an actor.
And he's great in it too. And I mean,
Yeah.
like he's I would love to know one day what he thought of doing 90210, because I know he's like a fan of like pop culture-y kind of things, and he's been in a lot of that stuff.
Then
know.
give him a call.
Yeah, we will try. But what about Burt Reynolds? Do you remember Burt Reynolds?
I remember hearing about him being on the show, and all I had to do was put him on the cast list and get the information, because all of that with someone on that level, and it comes from higher ups. I'm not that involved in it at all. But of course, you go over to the dressing rooms. Is he going to be here? Yes, he is. Okay, great. Then you go over and say, hi, this is who I am. Thank you for doing the show. And
Right.
then I moved on. Okay, he's Burt Reynolds. So yay.
That's amazing. Okay, what about Michael Durrell is another parent
Oh,
who gets cast as Donna Martin's dad.
yes. Michael Durrell is another one of those actors that I knew from my casting assistant days and casting secretary days. And he came in on everything. He's such a good, consummate character actor, just so good. And I think I hired him on every single show I ever cast.
That's
And
awesome, amazing. Yeah.
there are some people who I always wanted to do that for. And if something came up, yes, he had a recurring role on Matlock as a lawyer.
Oh wow, yeah. I didn't know that there was
Oh, yeah.
recurring roles on Matlock, but that's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's a whole other series. That's
Yeah.
a
We'll cover
podcast
that
in
next.
too.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And he's a great, great human being. And he was so happy to come in. And he's like, oh, Diane, I'm so glad to see you. And I was so happy. I'm just happy when actors who want to come in, and they do a great job, and then they get a role that lasts all this time.
He lasted the whole the series. I mean, they did kill the character off at some point, but 10
Yes, they did.
seasons of of working on that show. I mean, that's a big accomplishment for an actor who came in for just a couple of episodes, probably.
Yeah, and he's just good.
Yeah.
And I'm pleased that they liked him and that he would come in and do the job. It's great. It's just great.
The record executive, Raymond O'Connor. That's Raymond
Yes.
O'Connor's. Yeah.
Yes. I'm trying to remember. I think I hired him on Growing Pains, and he was so funny.
He's so good as this character.
He's so good.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, let's bring him in for this. And I just love him. Just, love him as an actor and a person. Great guy.
Billy Vera is
Billy Vera, I don't think I had too much to do with. I think I got a call saying, would you bring him in?
I think he's friend of Chuck, I think is what Larry FOC, friend of Chuck. Yeah.
I remember the last one we did that, I think Larry knew him too, or they had mutual friends or something. And I said, oh, Billy Vera and the Beaters.
Yeah, because that's who he wrote a lot of music too. Yeah. He wrote something in Growing Pains. He wrote a song that was in Family Ties, actually.
Family Ties. Oh gosh, yeah. So and I went up and introduced myself to him. Oh, nice guy, yeah.
Also
on the list of nice guys.
Michael Anthony Rollins. I'm trying to see who he was on 90210.
I remember his name, and I saw him. Where was it? But he's younger, and I remember him being nice too, a good actor.
Oh, was he Jordan Bonner? Maybe? Yeah. Yes. He's one of Andrea's boyfriends. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Just great name. He worked on the paper with her, didn't he?
I think so. I think briefly he was there. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's all the names I have from season 3. So this has been so much fun. We're going to do a fan fest with you at some point where fans get to ask you more follow-up questions to these 7 episodes that we covered, which will be a lot of fun. But has this been fun revisiting the casting of 90210?
Yes and no. And no, only because of the intervening years and lack of memory, and I didn't keep as many notes as I probably should have so that I could remember everything.
Sure.
And definitely yes, because I kind of dug in my heels for a bit, as you know, and thinking, oh God, because I was never in front of the camera kind of person. I always wanted to be behind the camera and just keep, my privacy and all of that kind of a thing. And I didn't want people to know me. I think it was because in Los Angeles, if anybody saw me outside and they were an actor, if I was shopping or something, I would get yelled at in the middle of a mall. And I'd be like, oh my God.
When we first, I don't know if we ever told this on the story on the air, but you told me there was something like that with maybe Marissa Tomei. Am I making that?
Yes.
Tell me about, tell people that's, yeah.
I don't know that I want to go there. No, she just, I heard my name and I was like, oh, and it was Marissa and Dianne.
This is before Marissa Tomei is Marissa Tomei. Yes, this is when Marissa Tomei is starting out. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And she was so nice. She's a very nice person.
Well, there's a thing about actors like needing to know who all the casting directors are in town because, they could help lead them to some part or some role.
Yes. And I did a couple of shows that were very popular in a certain age group. And
well, she's definitely somebody that, would be looking for you.
And it's, and I'll tell you why, when I lived in Studio City, an actor found out where I lived.
No, that must have been awkward.
And moved in next door.
Oh my God.
And I at that point, that's when I bought a house and moved to what was a kind of a rural section of the northeast San Fernando Valley. Mm-hmm. And of course, who lived out there were a lot of stuntmen.
Right. Wait, so when the actor moved next door, were you like, I don't know how, I'm still not casting you?
No, I didn't say that. I tried the best that I could to, I would say hello, but it was my life.
I mean, this is like a Lifetime movie.
Yeah.
It's like a, it's
Yeah.
a crazy move.
Well, but you know what? I can understand to a certain degree.
I guess so, but it's like it's like you're invading someone's private. I mean, now it would be just they followed you on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
In an obsessive way. Yeah. But,
yes.
But then it was moving in. Were they trying to get on 90210 or a show like that? Or?
Well, it was during Growing Pains.
I see. Mm-hmm.
When Growing Pains was so incredibly popular as well. And those were the two shows that people of a certain age group,
Yeah, I mean, that must have been difficult for your life at that time.
It was interesting. It was interesting. And you do the best you can. You can't be all things to everyone.
That's
and it's one of those things, you do the best you can. And there were things that happened on Growing Pains that were a little scary, or a lot scary. And maybe not as much on 90210,
Mm-hmm.
but and it was later, maybe I handled them better because I was a little bit older. But it does affect you.
Yeah. Maybe we should do Growing Pains next.
No.
I know there's a crossover segment of our fans that love Growing Pains. I do love that show. And you did cast a lot of great people on that.
Well, it was a great fun show. And I knew the producers from when I was an assistant at Mary Tyler Moore, and they came over when they made the transition from the creators of the show. They brought Dan Gunselman and Steve Marshall over, and they said, they were asked, well, who's going to cast the show? And they said, well, isn't Dianne here? And they were terrific. And I, ended up knowing a lot of other people I had been a casting assistant on a show called WKRP in Cincinnati.
Love that. Yeah.
And so that's how I knew them. And
head of the class was also sort of like in the 80s and
yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Mindy Marin cast that, to my recollection.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same kind of thing. Also a Warner Brothers show, same lot. Mindy's office and mine were close to, together. And it's, you just run into the same people. And then we moved off the lot. And like I said today, one of the seasons, I brought Brad Pitt in and he got the job. And then the next season, there was another role and they said, oh, what about that Brad Pitt? What about him? And I said, okay, so should I just hire? Oh, no, he's got to come in and read again. And I said, but you hired him last year.
He's good, right?
He's good. Oh, no, bring him in. And this is something I'll never forget. I saw him coming for the reading and at the Warner Brothers Ranch, which is where we were located. And I said, oh, Brad. Oh, and I ran over to him. And I said, thank you so much for coming in to read for this. I really, really appreciate it, even though you did the show last year. And he was just one of the greatest guys. He said, no problem whatsoever. I'm happy to come in. Thank you for the opportunity again. And I was like, oh, wow.
And he's just such a huge actor now. Yeah. And he's got his start on Growing Pains in a way.
Yeah, well, there's a whole other story about all of that. Yeah. But he did a couple episodes, got great response. And I'm always reading things about where I see about him because he was so nice. And people from his hometown would write in, oh yeah, I saw him in a couple of episodes of Growing Pains a long time ago. That kind of a thing. But we also had George Clooney came in and read for Growing Pains on multiple occasions and never got hired, which I always felt bad about because, again, another great human being and a good actor, obviously, in the intervening year is terrific.
But isn't that odd to you that like some of these guys go on to these huge careers and they couldn't get the Growing Pains? You know what I mean? It's weird, right?
Well, yes and no, because, depending on what the producers wanted, if it was something different than what I saw, Okay, but it's again, like we've talked about, Matt Damon on 90210.
No, yeah.
How many times I'd love to go back. I would love to have my casting list back. Putting the shreds back together saying, okay, how many times did I bring him in? Because I knew it was a lot. And they never heard him. But you know what? It's
so bizarre. Yeah.
It's life in Hollywood.
All right, this is great. Fan Fest is coming up. We'll let you know about that. And
thank you so much for all of this, Peter. Thank you for hounding me and
sticking with you. Yeah, I mean, I knew this was going to be great. I knew that the fans would love it, and I knew that, you would have some really good insight, because as I said, and I said it to Ro before, and I've said it to you, thank you for casting this show. You gave us so much life to the characters that were written on paper. You saw them in a way before anybody else saw them, and it made an impact on so many people's lives. The series has, and the actors have transcended something that is so special. So, and you had a large part of that.
It's I'm very grateful to have been included on this, and my niece Adria, I promised her I'd give her a shout out.
She's the one who said,
introduced
us to you.
That's my aunt, and contacted Larry Mullen, and that's how all of this happened after a couple of years. And
we tried, and we couldn't figure out how to get a hold of you. We asked around, and nobody knew how to get a hold of you. And but that happened, and that was amazing.
Yeah, and which means to me it was meant to be. And I hesitated, but a friend of mine here, my friend Bruce Bailey, who owns Roost, said, you got to do it. You got to do it. You got to do it. And so, okay. And it took me a while in the midst of moving and stuff. And I am very grateful to you for hounding me and coming out. And
I'm happy to do it. All right. So if people want to come
with all these people,
if people want to come see you up at this wine bar and they're in Washington, what is it called? Is Roost?
It's called Roost.
Okay.
ROOST, like a chicken roost.
Yeah, and they can ask around and find you, and maybe you can.
That might be a little bit difficult here.
But do not move in next. Don't move in next to her. Don't hound her on any kind of social media. Just
101 West 3rd Avenue in Moses Lake. Roost.
Amazing.
Yes.
Roost.
So thank you for the
plug.
Yeah. The plug. Yes. Thank you.
All right. Well, good talking to you.
You're terrific. Thank you.
We'll be in touch. I'm sure many more things. So thank you so much for this.